But it seems like your bigger concern is why people are buying guns.
Yes.
Because which is an indicator of another indicator, I suppose, alongside all these other things that you mentioned,
yes,
of just growing societal issues in the United States with trust in one's neighbor, trust in one's government, one's law enforcement, one's whatever institution you point to.
Yes.
And that people trust those less now, and that's leading them to buy the means to protect themselves. And so if people were buying guns because hunting became a renewed, just gained
Yes.
renewed popularity, that wouldn't be as much of a concern for you. Or if, 3-gun shooting became the next big professional sport and everybody wanted to start 3-gun shooting, and that's why they were getting into guns, that wouldn't be as much of a concern. But it's this specific role that chaos and fear of, oftentimes legitimate fear of what's happening in society, that's where your concern comes
from. I think if we had, in the 1990s, we had a great sort of push, which of course famously began in New York, to find ways to deal with crime and to lower the crime rate, and it succeeded. I was actually covering Congress as a reporter when the crime bill was being debated, and actually Joe Biden was one of the people who pushed the crime bill through the Senate. And the idea there was, we have a better idea of what works. Let's double down on that. More police, better ways to deploy them, things like that. I think and again, there are so many issues here. So there's a huge mosaic of issues. We can talk about trust in the police. We can talk about what the police have done to either earn that distrust or not. There are lots and lots of different things we can talk about, but it would certainly, I think, be better for everyone if people felt safer, and that feeling was based on reality. And again, I don't think it's quite as bad as a lot of people think. Again, that's why I said earlier about perception. Some of this, I think, is perception. I have felt it too. I just give you an example. I used to take the metro to go into work, and after there was some kind of mass shooting, for a week or so afterward, I was actually, I'm sitting in a tin can underground. If somebody pulls a gun out and starts shooting everybody, it's pretty hard to get away from that. And so, that sort of thing goes through your mind when you spent, 2 hours watching CNN talking about something like that. And then you get on a train, where there are absolutely it's not like an airplane where at least there's a security, system in place to try to prevent those sorts of things. So, again, I'm absolutely, I completely sympathize with these feelings and empathize with them because I share them. But when you take a step back, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a good sign.
You think it's a bad trend?
Right? Yes.
That's really the trend that concerns you, not so much the concept of buying a gun because you're concerned about the outside world, but this trend that's becoming a much more common reason for people to buy guns.
And again, let's assume we get, the polarization subsides, the crime rate drops, trust levels start rising, and somebody comes to me and tells me they still want to buy a gun because they feel like they need to protect themselves. Yeah. I don't want to take that right away from them. But because I may want to exercise it one day. Although, as I say in this piece, I'm a terrible shot. I'm not sure how good I'd be at that. But
that can be fixed with practice.
I would say one other quick thing, and that is I knew someone when I was growing up who had used a gun to defend himself successfully against someone who was assaulting him. There are these more public examples, like what happened in Oregon and was it Clackamas, I think, where someone shot someone who was about to engage or beginning to engage in what probably would have been a mass shooting.
Yeah, so there have been a number of those.
And I thank God those people were there. So, it's a tough issue, and I don't think there's some sort of one answer to all of these questions. And as I said before, there are lots of different things going on. We could talk about loneliness and the loneliness epidemic in America.
Sure.
There are lots of issues that I think are adjacent to this or touch on this. It's not just about crime or disorder or COVID or
Right.
whatever. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot going on here.
I mean, I think that, just to get into, I guess, my personal, I don't do this a lot, but just my personal views on it. I do definitely see that concern with the trend, right? That the fact that more people are buying guns because that more and more people feel insecure in society, or what's happening with society at large. That's definitely concerning, along with all the other factors that you noted.
Right.
Certainly, you could obviously also make the argument of like, how secure should you feel, even if things were going great? Things are much better now than they were in March 2020, right?
Yeah.
But what is the proper level of concern for your own personal safety? That's a more, I guess, more personal discussion to have.
Right.
Like,
It's
how
subjective.
much should you trust the government? How much should you trust law enforcement? I think law enforcement, usually the vast majority of law enforcement officers want to protect people and would try to protect you in a situation where you're facing a deadly force, but they don't have any legal requirement to do so. Nobody has that, only, to defend you. And so at the end of the day, how much security should you feel? Like, that's the other thing, is like, I don't know, but that's separate, I think, a little bit from the trend question. If more people on a societal level are feeling less secure and that's why they're buying guns, maybe you think it's good that maybe you think they've made the right calculation because you thought they should have been buying guns anyway before, but you can still be concerned about that trend, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think if, this is a very subjective choice. It's very, as you say, a personal choice. And so a lot of it is just how people feel. It depends on their circumstances. If you're taking a walk, if you're working a night shift and taking a walk at midnight every night to your car after you get out of work, as opposed to me who stops working at 6 o'clock, it's just different for everybody. Small business owners obviously often have firearms. And again, I know there are people who study this sort of thing, and I don't know exactly how that all shakes out, whether you're safer with a gun if you're in a store, if you're a store owner or not. But I understand.
It also comes down to like personal philosophy of whether you'd like to, not whether a gun makes you invulnerable, right?
Yes.
But whether you'd like to have the option, even if whatever negative externalities exist for owning guns.
Yes.
Right. And that becomes a personal philosophy, a personal question to a certain level. But yeah, I mean, I still think, even at the end of that, even if you're somebody who thinks, well, any reasonable person should own a gun because of X, Y, Z, and you're encouraged by more people doing that, you should still be concerned about if the reason they're doing that is because everybody thinks society is getting worse.